The Galactic Council gathered in its towering assembly chamber, a place built to remind younger species of their insignificance. Every wall shimmered with the banners of civilizations that had ruled long before humanity learned to split the atom, and the hall vibrated with the hum of translated voices layered over one another. To most species, this meeting was a chance to reaffirm their dominance. To humans, it was another reminder of how far the galaxy believed they could be pushed. Earth's delegation walked with measured steps, never showing irritation or fear, only a calm neutrality that made their movements blend into the massive chamber. For years, humanity had played the Council's game, paying resource tribute, signing restrictive treaties, and accepting oversight missions. Every concession was noted, every slight stored quietly. Humans acted patient, but patience was never the same as submission, and the Council had mistaken the difference. When the Speaker of the Council rose, the room fell completely silent. The towering figure's voice boomed from all sides as he announced a new decree meant to reinforce the structure of galactic order. The Council demanded that Earth deliver not just minerals, resources, or manufactured goods, but prisoners, individuals labeled by humanity as dangerous, corrupt, or socially harmful. They were to be handed over for labor allocation and behavioral experimentation, a phrase spoken with casual cruelty. The expression on the speaker's face suggested he expected outrage, but the human delegation remained perfectly still. Their lack of visible reaction unsettled a few observers, though most interpreted the quiet as fear. The speaker continued elaborating on the supposed benefits of the decree, but his words floated without resistance. Humanity's ambassador responded only when tradition required it. He stepped forward with a controlled calm that contrasted sharply with the arrogance filling the room. His acceptance of the decree was delivered without hesitation, without emotional inflection, without visible discomfort. That tone alone created a faint unease among the species who had studied human behavior. They sensed something beneath the stillness, but they could not identify it. Humans had a talent for hiding intent behind courteous restraint, and here it was stronger than ever. The Council noted the acceptance as compliance and moved on swiftly, eager to enjoy the quiet humiliation of another young species falling in line. The rest of the meeting dissolved into routine political maneuvers, while humans observed silently, absorbing every shift in posture, every whisper, every mocking glance cast in their direction. When the session ended, the human delegation exited without exchanging a single word with any other species. Their faces remained unreadable, their pace unbroken. Yet every step carried the weight of a decision that had formed the moment the decree was spoken. The Council believed humans had finally reached the point where they would be forced to expose their internal weaknesses. They expected criminals, outcasts, violent offenders, and undesirables, proof that Earth struggled to govern itself. It was a request designed to shame humanity across the galaxy. The Council wanted to see humans kneel, not in body, but in spirit. But beneath that surface calm, humanity was already calculating, aligning memories of old injuries, and reviewing names that were never forgotten. The human delegation returned to their transport vessel, communicating only through secure channels. Their faces held the same expressionless focus they displayed inside the chamber, but now that silence meant something very different. The decree had provided a narrow legal passage, a loophole crafted by arrogance, granting Earth permission to redefine the meaning of criminal, using their own laws. The Council had assumed humans would interpret the rule as they intended. They never considered the possibility that humans might obey the letter of the law while completely annihilating its spirit. That single miscalculation would alter the political gravity of the galaxy. Far from the Council's view, Earth had already begun shifting gears. Intelligence networks, military units, and judicial archives activated without hesitation. Humans had been preparing for an opportunity like this long before the decree. Not for rebellion, not for war, but for truth, truth wrapped in precision, timing, and patience. Humanity's history was full of moments where they endured, learned, and waited until the perfect instant arrived to make their move. This was one of those moments. The galaxy believed humans were quiet because they were weak. But humans were quiet because quiet was the most effective camouflage. Now that the decree had given them permission to reveal what they had been hiding, their stillness was no longer a mask. It was the calm before a consequence the Council had unknowingly demanded. Earth's acceptance of the Council's decree spread across the planet faster than any official announcement. Governments, intelligence agencies, and military branches reacted in a synchronized wave of activation, as if they had all been waiting for the same signal. The decree wasn't viewed as humiliation, it was an opening, a legal framework that finally allowed humanity to expose a truth they had guarded for years. No panic followed. No protests. Instead, an eerie, unified calm settled over leadership circles as encrypted channels lit up with orders marked with the highest clearance codes. Deep beneath major cities, hidden installations came to life. These facilities weren't prisons in the traditional sense. They were archives of captured threats, individuals taken during covert operations, not publicly acknowledged by Earth or the Council. Many species believed humans lacked the capacity to police the border territories, but they were wrong. Humanity simply didn't broadcast their victories. Every raid on a pirate den, every dismantled slaver ring, every intercepted raider vessel had resulted in prisoners quietly transported back to Earth. Each one had been catalogued, interrogated, and stored with methodical precision. These weren't human criminals. They were the galaxy's predators, creatures who had committed atrocities against human colonies before humanity gained enough political presence to challenge their attackers openly. Operation Red Ledger, a program whose existence was known only to a handful of leaders across the solar system, reviewed its secure database. Decades of carefully documented crimes unfolded in cold, clinical detail, each tied to a prisoner frozen in cryostasis beneath Earth, Luna, or Mars. Earth didn't keep them alive for revenge. They kept them for the moment the galaxy would be forced to confront the consequences of its silence. With the decree demanding prisoners labeled as criminals by Earth's laws, humanity finally had the legal justification to release this hidden ledger into the light. Human teams prepared the pods with an almost ritualistic precision. Technicians verified cryolock integrity, biometric seals, and classification tags. Every prisoner showed the same label, criminal, Earth sentence pending. Not one pod contained a human. These individuals were alien warlords who once burned outposts for sport, captains who trafficked colonists into forced labor, mercenaries who sold human refugees to black markets, raiders who targeted Earth's ships because they believed humans were too slow, too naive, or too politically weak to retaliate. They all shared one fatal miscalculation: humans recorded everything. Names, actions, dates, victims, locations. Every fact was stored and cross-referenced until the evidence was irrefutable. Military personnel kept their expressions neutral as they loaded the pods into the tribute transport. None felt anger. None felt triumph. Their discipline came from understanding that this operation wasn't about vengeance. It was about clarity. The Council believed it held moral authority over Earth, but this tribute would show the Council exactly what humanity had endured while trying to join the galactic community peacefully. Humans had adapted to the galaxy's complexity faster than anyone expected, and now the proof of their readiness was sealed inside unmarked metal pods. Throughout the solar system, the population sensed that something larger was unfolding. News networks speculated cautiously, unable to access classified details. Colonists on Mars and the outer moons held their breath, sensing the significance of the moment through subtle military movements and tightened communication protocols. Humanity had been treated as a minor player in a grand political theater, but their silence had always been strategic. Every humiliation from the Council had been logged. Every insult had been absorbed. Over decades, humans learned exactly how their adversaries operated, how they thought, how they hid their own corruption behind proclamations of order. As the tribute fleet prepared for departure, Earth's unified response became unmistakable. For the first time since their entry into the galactic stage, every nation, every colony, every branch of humanity aligned without debate. The Council thought the demand for criminals would expose human weakness. Instead, it revealed something far more unsettling. Humans had treated every injustice as data to be used later, every attack as a reason to become stronger, every captured enemy as a future demonstration of truth. The Council had given humanity permission to present their criminals. Humanity would obey. But they would obey in a way that turned the decree into a mirror, forcing the galaxy to face the reflection it had long ignored. When the engines of the tribute fleet ignited, there was no fanfare, no speeches, no broadcasts. Just a silent, steady departure. Humanity didn't need to announce what they were about to do. The Council would understand soon enough. The Galactic Council chamber was already buzzing when the human delegation arrived, though the whispers were sharper than usual. Representatives watched the humans with a mixture of fascination and smug expectancy, convinced they were about to witness Earth's most embarrassing submission yet. Rows of species known for their pride leaned forward eagerly as the humans approached with a procession of reinforced pods, each one marked with Earth's crest and secured with layered locks that signaled seriousness the Council didn't bother to interpret correctly. They were too focused on the spectacle they believed was moments away. The Council speaker wasted no time. His voice echoed with the confidence of someone who expected absolute compliance. He demanded that Earth's criminal tribute be revealed immediately so the chamber could determine how severe humanity's internal decay had become. The speaker's tone dripped with condescension, as though the request was a formality, and the humiliation guaranteed. He gestured grandly toward the pods, inviting the human delegation to provide an explanation or justification, expecting them to stumble through excuses about their so-called criminals. Instead, the human ambassador stepped forward with the same calm certainty he displayed the day the decree was announced. Without raising his voice or offering commentary, he ordered the pods opened. Human soldiers complied in silent synchronization, entering command codes and disengaging the layered security mechanisms. Metallic hisses filled the chamber as each pod's seals released. When the lids lifted, the Council's anticipation twisted into stunned stillness. The individuals inside the pods were not human. They were alien species recognized instantly by many in the chamber, creatures the Council had declared dead, missing, or untraceable years ago. Some were former generals who vanished after failed campaigns against frontier colonies. Others had been infamous raiders responsible for massacres the Council conveniently blamed on unknown aggressors. A few were names the Council itself had quietly removed from official records. Shock rippled through the assembly. Delegates who had arrived eager to mock humanity now stared in disbelief at criminals they thought beyond reach. Several species recoiled, recognizing enemies they had long feared. Others whispered frantically, realizing that Earth had captured individuals entire empires failed to locate. The silence stretched until the speaker demanded an explanation, though his attempt at authority carried far less weight now. The human ambassador delivered his answer with the same measured clarity he always used. These individuals, he explained, were criminals under Earth's law because their crimes targeted humans, their colonies, or their vessels. Each one had been found guilty through evidence collected in operations spanning decades. Earth had not kept them hidden out of secrecy, but out of respect for the Council's jurisdiction. They had waited for a legal pathway to transfer custody. The decree demanding prisoners provided exactly that pathway. Humans had simply complied using the Council's own wording. Holographic displays activated, showing meticulously documented records, intercepted transmissions, battle logs, survivor testimonies, star charts marking attack routes, and captured weapon signatures. Nothing was dramatized. Nothing was embellished. Every fact was presented with clinical precision, removing any possibility of contesting the legitimacy of Earth's choices. The chamber, usually filled with overlapping translations and ambient murmurs, became so silent that even the hum of the hollow projectors felt loud. A delegate from a reptilian empire stood in disbelief as footage displayed one of the criminals slaughtering refugees, an event her government had ruled inconclusive decades earlier. A representative of a merchant guild sank into his seat as records emerged proving that one of the prisoners had been a paid enforcer in his guild's hidden trafficking network. Every revelation stripped layers off the Council's manufactured image of moral authority. Humanity had not only captured the galaxy's predators, they had compiled complete dossiers on them while the Council pretended such criminals did not exist. The speaker attempted to accuse humanity of deceit, but his voice faltered when the human ambassador reminded him that the decree explicitly allowed Earth to define its own criminals. Every member species retained the right to determine what constituted a crime within their own jurisdiction. Earth followed the rule exactly. The Council's failure was not in the wording but in assuming humanity was naive enough to interpret it superficially. Rumbling voices broke across the chamber as factions argued. Some demanded immediate reevaluation of Earth's status. Others feared retaliation from emboldened human forces. A few species, especially those terrorized by the prisoners in the past, expressed gratitude, a shock even to themselves. Through it all, the humans remained motionless, either defensive nor triumphant. Their calm unsettled the Council more than any display of aggression could have. What the Council had intended as Earth's humiliation had transformed into their own reckoning. The truth lay exposed inside those pods. Humanity was not weak, disorganized, or naive. Humanity was observant, disciplined, and impossibly thorough. And the galaxy had never been more unprepared for what that truly meant. The moment the pods were opened, the Council lost the illusion of control it had wielded for generations. Delegates who once lounged with superiority now sat stiff, whispering in urgent tones as the weight of humanity's revelation settled over them. The criminal dossiers still flickered in the air, each one undermining years of political maneuvering, secret treaties, and buried scandals. The Council speaker attempted to restore authority by calling for order, but his voice cracked under the pressure of a chamber that no longer feared him. Every species understood the implications. Humanity had uncovered criminal networks the Council either failed to control or deliberately ignored. Worse, humans had done it quietly, efficiently, and without seeking acknowledgement. Accusations erupted across the chamber. A representative from a minor federation shouted that the Council knew some of these criminals were alive and chose to do nothing. Another species demanded to know how Earth captured fugitives operating deep within sovereign territories. The Council's inner circle, usually unflappable, found themselves scrambling for explanations. They had expected human weakness, but instead discovered human vigilance. They realized Earth had been fighting a shadow war to protect its colonies while the Council dismissed the frontier as insignificant. Now, the chamber trembled with the realization that the newcomers they mocked had been doing the job the Council claimed to oversee. The human ambassador remained silent through the chaos, his composure more destabilizing than any outburst. He simply watched, letting the Council fracture under the truth. Delegates noticed that humans were not celebrating their moment of leverage. They did not gloat or argue. They stood as though this outcome had been predicted. Their restraint unsettled the room more than any threat could have. A few species began whispering that humanity's silence was a strategic weapon, a warning that humans operated on a level of discipline most species had never encountered. The speaker demanded sanctions against Earth, claiming humanity had withheld information and acted outside interstellar protocol. But for the first time in memory, key members openly refused. A representative from a long-suffering border world declared that Earth had done more to capture slavers in 10 years than the Council had done in 30. Another reminded the chamber that the decree allowed Earth to determine its own criminals. A third demanded an inquiry into why the Council declared several fugitives, presumed dead, when Earth presented undeniable proof they had been active long after their alleged disappearance. The speaker's authority dissolved with every accusation thrown back at him. Humanity's ambassador finally spoke, not with aggression but with a calm analysis that cut deeper than any accusation. He outlined the timeline of alien attacks on human colonies that had gone unanswered, the pleas ignored, the evidence dismissed as inconclusive. Then he explained that humanity was patient because they believed in order. They followed Council laws because they hoped the Council represented fairness. But fairness, he said, required consistency. If Earth had to obey every decree without question, then the Council must obey the consequences of its own words. The ambassador reminded them that Earth had acted within the rule they were given. The criminal tribute was delivered exactly as requested. The chamber fell quiet again, this time with a different kind of tension, fear mixed with realization. Species who once viewed humans as inexperienced now saw a civilization capable of executing long-term strategies with precision. Humanity had proven they could dismantle criminal networks that outwitted empires. They revealed truths the Council failed to confront. They followed the rules until the rules turned into a weapon sharper than any blade. And they did all of it without breaking composure. Some factions began recalculating alliances on the spot. Planets tired of Council negligence glanced toward Earth with new interest. Empires weighed whether opposing humanity could be dangerous. Several representatives requested immediate diplomatic talks with human observers, hoping to secure favorable relations before the political landscape shifted too far. The Council speaker tried to reclaim the narrative by declaring Earth a potential threat, but even that declaration failed. Turning humans into villains required unity the Council no longer possessed. The holograms of exposed criminals floated above them like silent judges, reminding everyone who had really failed the galaxy. In the end, the Council had no choice but to formally acknowledge the tribute. Humanity's obedience, cold, meticulous, irrefutable, left them cornered. What was meant to break Earth had instead broken their authority. Humanity left the chamber without triumph or intimidation, only measured steps and unreadable expressions, leaving behind a Council forced to confront the consequences of underestimating a species that quietly prepared for the moment the galaxy would reveal its weakness. The aftermath of the tribute ceremony spread across the galaxy like a shockwave no Council directive could contain. News networks from core worlds to frontier colonies replayed fragments of the session, focusing on the frozen criminals delivered by Earth and the Council's inability to explain their sudden reappearance. For many civilizations, this was the first time they realized how deeply humanity had been observing, recording, and acting while the greater powers dismissed them as insignificant. What began as gossip quickly evolved into widespread reassessment. Species that once spoke of humans with mild amusement now used words like calculating, methodical, and unyielding. Earth had redrawn its entire reputation in a single day. Outside political chambers, reactions were even more intense. Border colonies that had long begged the Council for protection began viewing humanity as the only reliable force willing to confront threats the Council ignored. Governments that had previously kept Earth at arm's length now initiated diplomatic contacts, seeking alliances before the galaxy's balance shifted further. Trade guilds revised their projections, unsure how humanity's rise might affect shipping routes or frontier security. Pirate factions attempted to scatter into the deep void, terrified by the realization that humans had captured individuals they believed untouchable. The quiet efficiency with which Earth handled its enemies created a fear more potent than any military fleet. On Earth and its colonies, people watched the galactic reaction unfold with a determined calm. The tribute mission had not been a show of dominance but a demonstration of capability. Humanity had endured years of condescension and imbalanced treaties because they believed in adapting first, rising later. That patience paid off. The Council's decree gave them the opportunity to reveal what they had been preparing all along, a message delivered without threats, without force, and without a single human weapon raised. The pods themselves had been enough. Diplomatic requests flooded human communication channels. Some species apologized for past indifference, others sought cooperation in hunting fugitives, and a few nervously inquired whether Earth planned to expand its military presence. Humanity responded with the same composed tone they had shown in the chamber. Earth announced the strengthening of the Interstellar Protection Initiative, a program built not to dominate but to ensure that crimes against developing civilizations would no longer be buried beneath political convenience. They offered collaboration to any species willing to uphold real justice, not the symbolic gestures the Council favored. This stance unsettled the Council further. Their authority depended on controlling narratives, but humanity's approach made manipulation impossible. Humans displayed no hunger for conquest, no demand for new territories, and no desire to rewrite the Council's charter. Their influence grew not through coercion but through consistency. Species wary of Council negligence naturally gravitated toward Earth, drawn to the clarity of a civilization that followed rules precisely and held others to the same standard. Inside the Council chambers, whispered meetings took place daily. Some argued humanity should be embraced before they built their own power block. Others feared that human justice, if left unchecked, could expose more buried secrets across the galaxy. Even the Speaker, once certain of Earth's inferiority, realized that attempting to punish humanity would only worsen the Council's fractured image. No sanction could be justified without revealing the truth humanity had already exposed. They were trapped by their own decree, forced to accept that Earth had obeyed them more effectively than they intended. Humanity's ambassador returned to Earth, leaving behind a chamber still struggling to process what had happened. His final words, delivered without hostility, replayed across countless star systems, the warning that demands carry consequences, and those who issue them must be prepared to receive exactly what they request, even if it challenges their comfort. The message resonated deeply. It wasn't a threat. It was a reminder of balance, a reminder the Council had forgotten. Across human territory, life continued with renewed confidence. Colonists who once felt overshadowed by galactic powers now walked with a sense of pride, knowing their species had proven itself without needing grand proclamations. Scientists, soldiers, diplomats, and civilians all understood the same truth: humanity's strength came not from force, but from resolve. They adapted, endured, planned, and acted only when necessary. The galaxy learned that humans did not seek conflict. They sought stability. But if forced into a corner, they responded with precision that left no room for misinterpretation. Their tribute had been a lesson, delivered with quiet finality. And as new alliances formed and old empires reconsidered their stance, one reality anchored itself across the stars: humans did not bend to intimidation. They upheld their own standards until the galaxy recognized them. Humanity had not taken power. The galaxy had handed it to them by underestimating the one species that treated patience as a weapon.